With rising cases of cyberbullying and online threats, the Communications Authority of Kenya launches Be the Cop Online to protect young internet users. Will it be enough? A surge in synthetic drug production in Southeast Asia is fueling a global crisis. How is the world responding? Activists arrested during protests against police brutality spark concerns over the Kenyan's shrinking democratic space. From the heart of global conversation to the stories shaping our world, this is Global Pulse Live. I'm Amina Hussein, bringing you in-depth analysis and compelling stories that matter. Over the next 25 minutes, we dive into the digital realm, exploring online safety for children and youth, the ongoing battle against drug abuse, and critical human rights discussions. Throughout the episode, you'll hear insights from 4 experts and 4 analyses, offering different perspectives on these pressing issues. Stay with us for the next opinions, real-life experiences, and solutions. And don't forget to join the conversation online. Follow at Global Pulse Live on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook for updates and exclusive content. The Communications Authority of Kenya recently launched a nationwide campaign to promote reasonable internet use among children and young people. The campaign, titled Be the Cop Online, aims to educate parents, teachers, and students on the risk of cyberbullying, online predators, and exposure to harmful content. Our reporter, Neville Oyata, with more on this.
The internet has become an essential part of learning and social interaction, but with it comes risks such as cyberbullying, online predators, and exposure to harmful content. To address these challenges, the Communication Authority of Kenya has rolled out the Be the Cop Online campaign, aimed at equipping parents, teachers, and students with necessary skills to navigate the digital space safely. The campaign will run across schools and community centers, educating young people on the dangers lurking online and how to protect themselves. Parents and teachers are also being engaged, with experts emphasizing the need for digital literacy and open communication between children and guardians.
My name is Jeria Hussein, and I work for the Communications Authority of Kenya. We are doing a campaign called the COP Online campaign, whereby it's an initiative that aims to promote responsible internet use amongst children and young people. So what we're trying to do is educate parents on online safety risks, such as cyberbullying, online predators, and exposure to harmful content. So as we all know, that Kenya, there's increase of internet in Kenya, and there is no control, especially for the young kids. Parents are busy doing what they're doing. Educators are busy teaching kids. There's really no one who has come up and said, what are we doing for our kids? The kids are exposed to internet. They are subjected to predators. Their mental health is diminishing by the year. So these key stakeholders need to come out and talk about what is happening to our kids. So children under the age of 10 are having access to the internet. And sometimes parents don't even know that their children have internet. So what we need to do is create a safe space where parents are able to know what their kids are doing, So once there's that safe space, they're able to understand and know, the kids have social media, and they're able to work together, and they're able to control, at least prevent, online predators, the cyberbullying that has a long-term effect on these kids. The mental health problems has increased because of kids being exposed to these things. So all in all, what the online campaign is, the COP Online campaign is trying to do is get these stakeholders talk about the pressing issues that are going on currently in with these children, and just have a cohesive understanding that we have a problem and we need to fix it, and it needs to be done now before it gets worse and other generations are affected.
Thank you. That's a good question. Information can be either good or bad in terms of digital content, because children have access to a lot through small devices, and most of these platforms that we have or interact with do not really have any caveats to what you can access, and they do not have background checks just to verify the information that is submitted. So an underage child could submit data and information stating that they are above the consensual age to access certain data, which might not be factual. And they will have access to data that ranges from graphic content, adult content, things to do with war, things to do with drugs, things to do with dangerous engagements between themselves online. And so I think that there should be caveats, or that there should be more, that there should be more consistency and intentionality with how we do background checks for us to give approval for people to either view information, access information, or even just utilize a different platform online.
The government should enforce on security measures while ensuring they don't indulge in their fundamental rights like the privacy and also the rights of humans. And also they should give citizens the opportunity to contribute on the participations or maybe the issues that concerns the citizen. They should give that leeway of the citizens to contribute on their issues. Social media enables freedom of expression. People express themselves freely without having any fear. And also social media brings people together. You could even see the other time when Gen Zs were coming together, we could see on the social medias what they were doing, and it gives people the chance to come together as a nation.
Okay, so should access to the internet be considered a fundamental human right? And if so, what responsibilities the government have in ensuring this right is protected?
The government should provide access to affordable internet and also train the internet providers on the data protections and the cyberbullying. They should also bring in together the youths that are trying to create jobs for them.
The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime has reported a surge in synthetic drug production and trafficking in South Asia. The drugs are increasingly being smuggled into international markets, leading to a global public health crisis. Our reporter, Nevi Loyata, with more on this.
Of synthetic drugs, especially methamphetamine, has surged across southern East Asia, with authorities struggling to contain the trade. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes warns that these illicit substances are not only flooding local markets, but are also being smuggled across borders, posing serious health and security threats worldwide.
My name is Rafael Nzonzi. I've worked in a rehabilitation center before, and I will say working in that center has helped me to have a wide experience in the field of drugs. Recently, we've had a surge in the consumption of synthetic drugs, mainly because these are drugs that are cheaper and easier to produce, and the weaker regulations that are governing the scene. Corruption has also contributed to this. To this effect, therefore, we can talk about the various effects that this surge has had. We've had an increase in drug-related deaths, mental health disorders that are mainly caused by this surge, and increased violence and instability. And so we can have various strategies in place to curb this, including stronger border regulations and increased public health awareness campaigns. Thank you.
example would be when you're growing up as a child and you're expected to have spoken your first words before the age of 2. And if you haven't, and you're perhaps an only child in the family or in the household, then your mom might be, or your parents might be recommended to take you to a place where other kids speak of your age. So when you go to a place where other kids speak, that offers stimulation for you now to start talking. So when you see your peers talking, you start talking. It's the same for drugs. If you see your peers taking drugs, you're more likely to find social acceptance in their behavior to start doing it by yourself. And so if we have, let's say, teenagers in a school taking drugs, they are likely to recruit other teenagers in that school to take drugs because those teenagers sort of represent or provide a social acceptance, a social permission for that behavior, even if they're doing it in secret. Yes.
Thank you for that. The last question is, so what are the short-term and long-term effects of drug use on mental health, relationship, and future opportunities?
Okay. So short-term effects would be when you're intoxicated by the drug. And here we're looking at key areas that get affected in your mental health, things like perception, the way you see your environment, things like mood, how your mood is when you take the drug. So typically drugs tend to either calm us down or excite us because of the activation of the reward hormone, which is good for pleasure and good for motivation. They also affect our cognition, which is our ability to think. So when you're using certain drugs, your ability to think is affected, usually negatively. And they can also affect your memory as well and other executive functions. And so in the short term, when you're intoxicated, these aspects are affected. In the long term, or even in the short term, going into the long term, the way you relate with people when you're intoxicated is different from the way you relate with them when you're sober. And so if when you're sober, you're perhaps calm or happy, then when you take the drug, depending on what that drug is going to do for you or to you, you might find yourself getting angry or becoming more expressive with your emotions or becoming more aggressive with the drug. And so that will affect the way people relate with you when you're intoxicated in the short term. But also, as you continue abusing the drug, you start developing what we call a problematic pattern, meaning this drug is going to start causing problems in different areas of your life. So it can cause problems in your time, meaning you spend more time looking for drugs, seeking drugs, getting over the effects of the drug, meaning you're missing on your obligation. You might find yourself spending more money. You might find yourself having conflicts or arguments in your relationships directly as a result of you using that drug. So if you're staying up late and your parent is worried about you, you're going to have a conflict precisely because of you using that drug or the behavior that you have surrounding the use of that drug. You might find yourself missing school. So these problematic patterns of using the drug is what we call drug abuse. Okay? And so when now you start having problems with your interpersonal relationships. Interpersonal relationships are considered as a risk factor for mental health challenges or mental illnesses. So the drug itself, maybe now as a result of impaired interpersonal relationships, can predispose you or can precipitate a depressive episode, an anxiety episode, even a psychotic episode. Yes. So long-term consequences would mean that you'd have strained relationships, you'd have not completed your academic studies, you would have, if you're working, you might not be able to sustain that job. Yes. And also it can have physical consequences on your body. So some drugs, for example, alcohol, we know can affect your liver. And if you continue using it despite having liver issues, it might actually progress to permanent liver damage. Yes. So different drugs would have different long-term debilitating physical challenges or physical illnesses.
That yellow is Cospam. Yeah.
Umetumia ngapi leo?
I've used 3.
So far you've used 3?
I normally make my joint and then I just lie on it as a blue band on mukate, on a bread, on a slice of bread. When I put on my fire on my joint, I feel as if I'm in heaven. I wish I could touch the sky because I feel so high, more high and high.
Watu wanakufa kwa sababu hizo tembe. Juzi wankuja watu wa kutoka ninio wote Red Cross, Msalaba Mwekundu, watu wakae kwanza kupimwa pimwa. Hakuna kutoka wala uni dawa. Pimwa umalize ndio poe dawa. Mkaambua mnakula sasa, mtu akipatikana amekula transfer na kwenda Shimo la Tewa, kuna dawa.
We are just getting started on today's edition of Global Pulse Live. Stay with us, do not go ahead.
Kote nchini matumaini, tujitahidi, tujivunie, tuendelee.
Kenya, twende mbele. NCBA, go for it.
The arrest of several activists of Inuka Kenya Trust during a peaceful demonstration against police brutality raises concerns about striking democratic space and respect for human rights in Kenya. The protest was triggered by allegations of police involvement in forced disappearance and extrajudicial killings. Our reporter with more on this.
According to human rights groups, cases of extrajudicial killings and enforced disappearances have been on the rise, with families left searching for answers. Protesters had gathered to demand transparency and justice, but police responded with arrests, a move that critics say undermines the constitutional right to peaceful assembly. Witnesses say law enforcement officers dispersed the demonstrators forcibly, despite no reports of violence during the protest. The incident has sparked outrage with calls for the immediate release of those detained and an end to what critics describe as a growing pattern of repression. As pressure mounts on authorities to respect civil liberty, the arrest of these activists raised critical questions about Kenya's democratic space.
Well, the rule of law holds democracy by ensuring that all individuals, say in our country Kenya, everybody is subjected to the same laws, right? And the president, the assistant chief, someone down there, to border someone else that's subjected to some law. Then that really enforces democracy. People say this once a year for just voter suppression and rebellion. Voter suppression is the most one, the most common one that we have experienced in the past. This can be mitigated by just enforcing serious penalties on electoral malpractices, strengthening the electoral body, the electoral commission body. Yes. Legal tools. We in the past 5 or 6 months. No, it's almost 8 months now. When was Gachagua increased? 6 months. Yeah, so those are the kind of tools that we have that will, help us to resist this authoritarian kind of dictatorship. So we can always exploit level premise of that?
So human rights are the rights that we possess just by virtue of being human, like right to life. You deserve it. You just possess it. A human being deserves sleep, right to education, right to a clean environment. These are things that you possess. Yeah. And they are universal because they are for everyone, regardless of where you live or where you come from. They are for everyone. That's why they are universal. Different cultures interpret, especially in Africa, we interpret human rights differently. There's individual versus collective. For example, human rights related to gender are different from culture to culture. And because society is seen as one, so they are a bit different in the way they navigate. It's very different from the one we have right now and the government system we have right now.
I am honestly tired of decisions being made on behalf of us that do not benefit us.
One of the things that did strike home close to home is the fact that they wanted to increase taxes on cancer treatment. Personally, I think I have had a relative or someone close to me just undergo through their treatment, and it's not cheap.
Everyone pulled up. Like, I just made a random video on TikTok and I was like, please pull up, please pull up. Boniface, they made the posters. Wagwa Nairobi made the posters as well for the youth. We pulled up, we did an amazing job. Tupatane tena kesho, Thursday. 12 p.m. Ja Parliament, once again.
Kwenye bunge.
They must listen to your people. Listen to the ones who elected you. Listen to the ones who are going to re-elect you if you behave. You get? We are your people. You are our leaders. We chose you. Please act right. That's all we are asking. We didn't say raise whatever, like our salaries or anything. Just make lives for our life, like, comfortable na tuweze kuendelea kama Wakenya hata hiyo tax yenye mnasema tutalipa aje na hatuna pesa yawa. Hatuna biashara, tutalipa aje? Sasa hiyo ndio inaitwa brain drain. You're going to be learning stuff from Kenya and taking it to the foreign countries.
How do you see the future of Gen Zs in politics?
I think it would be very interesting. There's a big misconception about Gen Z, and I take it upon myself both as an advocate for the youth and as a young person myself. Despite this mentality that we are lazy, I think we've learned how to do things in a far more efficient way, because at the end of the day, we are a generation that does what we need to do in the time we need to do it. And Gen Z also, I think we've been taught to think that we'll be the worst politicians, but the core difference I see with our politics and the politics of our parents' generation, unfortunately to say, my aunties and uncles still believe in a tribe. I don't know your tribe, and honestly, I don't care. We are humans, we are one, we are Kenyans, and we are all being taxed to death.
Yeah.
So I think this generation of Gen Z in politics is going to be so much more influential and progressive.
Okay, and what do you want the government to do for the Gen Zs?
Okay, personally, kindly just lend us an ear. You listen to us. Because, as you said, there's a misconception of us being lazy. We're not lazy. We're just doing things differently. Like, sisi mi sitaenda kazi nifanye kazi ya 8 hours.
Began as a peaceful protest demanding accountability, has now raised even more questions about Kenya's commitment to upholding democratic freedoms. Activists from Inuka Kenya Trust, alongside other demonstrators, were arrested while calling for justice for victims of alleged police brutality and forced disappearance. Reporting for Global Pulse Live.
And that brings us to the end of today's edition of Global Pulse Live. Thank you for staying with us for 25 minutes. We appreciate the insights shared by our experts and analysis, the most importantly, your engagement as our audience. Remember, the conversation does not stop here. Stay connected with us on @Global Pulse Live across Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Let's keep asking the big questions. Stay informed and see you for the next or more impactful stories. Until next time, take care.